Hello, my name is Anna Sanchez, and Pics Didn't Happen in Actual Stories is my second fiction collection. I write both realist fiction and speculative fiction, but the stories here are primarily in the realist mode, which has allowed me to intimately chronicle and interrogate little, quote unquote, losses and victories that occur in familiar physical spaces, like the university or a food court or a pawn shop or a car ride, spaces that display quietly oppressive and often neoliberal systems that dictate human actions. How much pain do we inflict on others? And how much compassion are we able to extend given our circumstances? How wide is that gap between the self and the other? With those questions in mind, I wrote these stories over the years as documentations of my love and my grief. To talk about both the book and the titular story, Picture Didn't Happen, I have to talk about the late writer and cultural worker Jose Claudio Guerrero, whom we all called Butch. I met him when I was a new faculty member of the UP Department of English and Comparative Literature, and together with a few other faculty, junior faculty, we bonded over the exhausting demands of various committee work for the next 5 years, until we all reached the breaking point that led my friends to reevaluate their future in UP and decide to leave. A couple of years later, in our last get together in August of 2013, he asked us if we had story collections we were willing to publish under his soon to be small press called Books Guerrero, in time for the BLTX Zine and Small Press Expo in December. He set the deadline to September, which we all failed to meet, and then the deadline just kept getting pushed back. In the first week of December, he passed away. And it took me 5 or 6 more years after that to truly complete the story collection. Because you see, in my head, my art was tied to Butch. And when he passed away, I felt like I had lost my art. I never got to attend his wake or any of the funeral services. I was too angry, too heartbroken, and he had been so popular. I was afraid that if I attended the wake, I would have to face the reality of how small my role had been in his life. And, once again, as when he resigned from the department, I would lose him to other people. He had been so important to me, and I never got to tell him that. And so, 5 years later, I wrote Picture Didn't Happen, the final story in this collection. In this story, two people who are always late arrive at the museum earlier than the rest of their friend group and decide to start walking ahead. Their story unfolds through the sculptures and paintings across the sprawling property. One of the sculptures they see is that of a man curling into himself as hundreds of snails crawl across his body. It's called Take Your Time, but the man does not look relaxed or chill. He looks like he's about to transform, for better or for worse. But in the meantime, he suffers. This story is fiction because Butch and I never went to this museum together. But everything else in the story actually happened, even though we didn't have enough pictures together as proof.
The property must have been carved from the mountain forest. So varied and numerous are the trees that cast shade on the paved paths. Every so often, a canopied daybed reveals itself in the garden along the paths, intended for both those who need to catch their breath and those who have a pathological need to photograph themselves under white canopies. The flowing fabrics match the blinding facades of the mission-style buildings that host the galleries. White stone against blue sky, and you almost imagine the shimmering expanse of a Grecian sea just beyond. On the way to the galleries, the landscape unfurls with strange, mythical figures. The dark-hued cast iron sculpture of a faceless, pregnant woman, her hair and veins melding into the Baroque silhouette of a tree. The eye-level plaster statue of a woman becoming a spider. Also in plaster, the larger-than-life form of a naked young man pushing a boulder uphill, all his muscles straining, one ankle fettered, the thick clasp and heavy chain stark black against his pale skin. In order, Mira, Arachne, Sisyphus? What strikes you the most, though, is a statue with a reference you aren't sure of. Take your time, says its nameplate. Set downhill amid the vegetation of the side of the cemented stairs. The life-size figure of a man is supplicated on a boulder, not quite kneeling, but curling into himself, his hands grasping his head as if in utter, unnameable regret, while dozens, hundreds of snails crawl up the boulder onto his legs and elbows, onto the curve of his spine, towards his neck. Any moment now, it seems, he too will grow a shell, crawl down from the boulder and into the earth. How much time do we have? You ask B. With a wave of his hand, B declares that time is a construct, and can we really ever know the answer to that question? So he walks on and you follow. Before the first gallery is a flight of stairs, and you find yourselves on top of the low building. This is part of the exhibit, it seems. 9 Muses and the Chorus by 𝗦𝗏 Gonzalez. The Muses hold court as terracotta sculptures installed around the small amphitheater. The acoustics here are unique, as deliberately crafted as the sculptures. When you and B hop onto selected marks on the concrete stage, your voices reach each other loud and clear.
If we must speak to the Muses, I would speak to the 9 in our old garden, one each for the various arts, up on their pedestal. The curves of their bodies could not be contained by the paralysis of stone, their skins of moss glistening as they worked, each on her own art, yet bound together. We must have met under their insouciant glow, for that was the nature of our profession. The oldest in the group, I took you under my wing, naming the various cliques in the department, initiating you into committee tasks, commanding your fealty. When one day you raised your voice against me, I lowered mine and asked, "Why are you getting angry?" You said you weren't, but I pressed, "You're yelling at me." We must have stopped speaking to each other for days. The next time we did, because our work demanded it, I declared, "We are only acquaintances." You laughed, because I had drawn a line precisely so we would never forget that through our overstepping, the worst was over. This profession of letters and patronage, points and promotions, it takes a toll in devious circumstances. For you, there was the awards night. The event coordinator had sent you an invitation, so you believed, like the previous year, you would place second or third. It did not matter. It was a celebration you wanted to share with us. So we all dressed up, hired cars beyond our budgets, braved the rush hour traffic, rubbed elbows with beautiful people we despised because their world resided far above ours. What pomp we celebrated, and what hunger, as the event was enormous but poorly organized, graced by too many guests that included the unpopular sitting president of the republic, as well as the late dictator's wife. When finally the prizes were announced, we listened with bated breath for your name. In vain, it turns out, you were no more than a finalist among winners. One of our friends had won, and we cheered. But I looked at your face and understood what I saw. I put my arms around you. Why must we weep when there is no beloved's death, but a simple disappointment that felt like a loss? And yet it was a loss we suffered every day, wrestling with our art. Was it too much to desire tonight as a reprieve? Your arms tightened around me, and you kept your face buried in my chest. The world around us receding from this consolation prize, the little comfort I could offer.
Even inside these buildings, the landscape continues to announce itself in the sloping floors, the frequency of short flights of stairs, and here and there those immense boulders, remnants of the mountain that had given way to man-made art. What the artisans could not vanquish they built around, stunning reminders of what lay beyond human comprehension, intermingling with the pieces born from imagination. In the galleries, with you as witness, the paintings and installations parade in earnest. Children and peasants populate the walls in acrylic as do frames of religious iconography filtered through radiology. Vast dioramas stand beside plasters hewn from pop culture. Wire installations morph into phantoms in the hallways. In one of the courtyards of the buildings, a series of sculpted 𝗍𝗹𝘁𝗶𝗃 have been set across the white wall, as if the lithe silver creatures were leaping straight from the woods that peered into the yard. Everything seems alive here, 𝗍𝗹𝗁𝗶𝘃. This is the extent of your capacity for art criticism, and perhaps on another day, B might have raised an eyebrow or given you an exaggerated lecture. But today, he simply nods, generous in his forgiveness. Perhaps it's because not once have you remarked on the malaise that seems to weigh on his posture, giving him an aura of being not quite there, as if he were preoccupied with more than what all the art has been trying to convey. You wonder if he's ever seen a doctor about that momentary paralysis he told you about some time ago. The nerves in all his limbs numb, the effect we'll thought of alcohol poisoning or dehydration. Did he ever take any medicine? He has not needed to slow down on the walk here, not that he ever needed to your knowledge. You watch him stare at the paintings, then hear yourself asking, "How's your heart?" He glances in surprise, and then amused, he presses a hand to his chest. "Still here," he says, and before turning to the next painting retaliates, "How's yours?" You consider the amount of time you haven't seen each other. "I had cats. 2 girls. He smiles. "What happened?" "What happens to everything we love eventually?" One painting you might have understood enough to comment on. Emmanuel Garibay's The Flight, after Portrait of the Artist as Filipino by Nick Joaquin and The Aeneid by Virgil. It is a painting based on a description of a fictional painting based on the narration of a bard, and it features 3 characters. The hero with his father and his son fleeing a disaster. In Garibay's rendition, the hero carrying the old man on his back is Jose Rizal. As for the disaster causing the exodus, the backdrop of fiery gold smoke and charcoal shadows jumps out like the burning of Troy. Then you realize they are only clouds in late afternoon, and the actual catastrophe is a great flood that has half drowned Manila. First, the Muses, now Rizal and the fiery clouds. You remember the faculty center burning, but you pause, because B was not there anymore when the decrepit but much loved offices burned down from what faulty electrical wiring or which careless employee you will probably never learn. Just as you will never know the actual value of all the decades' worth of books and monographs and rare footage and research and artwork and creative spaces that the fire devoured with painstaking leisure. A slow but certain feast that you and your other friends couldn't take your eyes off when, unprompted and uninvited, you arrived one by one at the scene at 3, 4 in the morning, holding vigil in the dark dawn, staring blankly in response to firefighters asking about fire exits and the integrity of the stairwells, the geographical map of the building burning away from your memory as tongues of flames leaped into view through the windows and your broken glass, the building pipes bursting onto charred metal and burnt wood, more people arriving at 5, 6 in the morning, fire and smoke rising and dying and rising again. Where is purification in this? Where is salvation? after the fire against the rules, you walked along the corridors where you and B and your friends used to exchange countless barbs and jokes and word complaints. But all the plywood walls inside had burned away, and you couldn't even tell where the rooms ended and the corridors began. You had to wear a hard hat and rubber boots that sank in the damp suit. Water and ashes were all you had left. Gallery after gallery, the two of you walk now, the questions rolling around in your head, freezing in your mouth. Were you happy when you left? You ask B. But of course, he replies.
It was the work, eventually, that made me leave, if any explanation is warranted. The work and the exhaustion and the dream to branch out, to spread my wings, to be free, if you will, a break from the points and the promotions and degrees. How to explain the journey I embarked on at my age. How to describe the places I went to, the people I met. I worked with writers, other artists. I visited cathedrals and old buildings and helped save heritage sites. I flew all over the country, wooing LGUs and private enterprises on behalf of communities. I found and sold pottery pieces, tended to my garden, continued my mother's animal rescue. I raised funds for my own small business too, collaborating with artists and sponsors, capitalizing on writers' desires. Pens, notebooks, tote bags, everything you need. Up next, who knows? My own little publishing line? Was it any wonder that we lost touch when I left? Rooted to the ground, you must have simply taken me for a butterfly, flitting to and fro. Outside of the university activities, we don't even have pictures together. When you took my place at the institute, the staff called me repeatedly in the months that followed, asking me to remove the books I had left behind in what used to be my little corner, because you needed the space. When I finally found the time to pick them up, you were sitting at the desk I once commanded. My books piled behind a box behind what was once my chair. And as I came near to gather my belongings, we hardly made eye contact, as if all it had taken to forget 6 years was 6 months of separation. And suddenly, we were strangers. The last time we saw each other, we didn't even say hi. It was evening, and you were in a big meeting at the university hotel's restaurant, while I arrived for my own meeting a few tables away. Maybe we waved at each other, I can no longer recall. I turned my back to focus on my new co-workers, and when I turned around again, you were gone. Without so much as a goodbye. Was it any wonder, I thought? Then my phone pinged with a message from you about the night air being cold as you were walking away from the restaurant, about how you hadn't wanted to bother me because I seemed busy, but you just wanted to let me know I miss you. I read your message again and again and texted back, Gaga, followed by a smiling emoji, poor shadow to make grim of relief. Without waiting for your reply, I texted again. See you next week at Writer's Night. Meaning it too, never thinking of eternity, which always lay between the now of a promise and the future of its fulfillment.